The streets of Paris turned into a battlefield as violent clashes broke out between French security forces and supporters of the PKK terrorist group. It happened after 3 people were killed in an attack at a cultural center in the capital on Friday. Supporters of the terror group waved banners and chanted slogans as they injured more than 30 police officers and caused significant damage in the French capital. Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar condemned the attacks but said France has supported the terror group for years and that it's now paying the price. The PKK terror group was founded in 1984 and has waged a decades-long war against Türkiye, resulting in the deaths of more than 40,000 people. Last month, Türkiye launched Operation Close Sword against the PKK and its YPG offshoot in Northern Syria and Iraq, just a week after a terror attack in Istanbul left 6 people dead and dozens wounded. And to further discuss the recent protests by PKK terror group supporters in Paris, joining me now from Gaziantep is Murat Aslan. He's a faculty member at Hasan Kalyoncu University, and from Innsbruck, Austria, Klaus Jürgens. He's a political analyst and journalist. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Klaus, what do you make of the violent protests that turned capital Paris into a battlefield? Were you surprised?
In the long run, I was actually, unfortunately, not surprised. In particular, Turkey has been warning its European partners and allies, one day PKK terrorists might strike actually on your very own soil. There are 2 reasons I keep on saying. The first one, Turkey is doing whatever it can to erase this heinous, barbarous group of terrorists. At the same time, many of them have found a safe haven on European soil, and not only since yesterday. It is absolutely logic that they are trying to launder money, that they are trying to garner support for their illegal activities. And as we see, they are absolutely violent, and they turn against the very safe haven where they actually found refuge. Now, this is a wake-up call for Europe.
Are you sure about that, that it's a wake-up call?
I hope it is a wake-up call. Let me put this into the German perspective for a few seconds. We had a coup attempt by 54 people. Some argue it was no coup attempt. Some say it was very seriously. The intelligence office found out 21,000 active sympathizers. Only for last year did the same intelligence agency find out the PKK has 14,500 known sympathizers. If 54 people try to stage a coup in one country, can you imagine 400 or 500 PKK supporters in France, in Belgium or in Germany? What kind of terror potential they have? So yes, it must be a wake-up call.
So before getting the Turkish perspective, I'd like to play Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's warnings towards Europe after a series of terror attacks that shook the country, Türkiye, back in 2016. Let's have a listen and we'll continue to talk.
Once again, I call out to the countries that, directly or indirectly, embrace terrorist organizations. You are feeding a snake in your bosom. The snake you feed might bite you at any time.
Beslediğiniz o yılan her an sizi de sokabilir.
So Murat, Turkey's defense chief Hulusi Akar has also condemned the attack, but said, as President Erdogan said, France has supported the terror groups for years and that it is now paying the price. Would you agree with Klaus? Could this be a wake-up call for Paris administration, which is supporting the PKK members operating along Turkey's borders?
Should be, because there is a clear fact that these people are well organized and act within a hierarchy across the streets and resist and also attack, not only resist but also attack. So this is a clear warning to French government that there's an entity in France ready to, escalate the security situation and just pursue a policy that, well, demand a carrot, otherwise stick from us. So I think this is just a clear warning to French people that there is an entity over there ready to, do something across the streets, directly challenging the security and order.
So, Klaus, what do you make of some French policymakers' reactions to these attacks? Why have some sided with the PKK and its sympathizers after the incidents?
Well, we only have to take a look at mainstream media, mainstream politicians who still belittle the dangers of the PKK/YPG, as we know by now, because there was a time when everyone who was fighting for something was basically a bona fide freedom fighter. What many people in Europe never understood, including my own generation, these are no freedom fighters, these are hardcore terrorists. And still, many in the political elites, in the mainstream media, just think, well, basically this is a problem of Türkiye. We are a liberal democracy. Let them demonstrate. What shocked me the most is the very reluctant action and reaction by Paris police. I would have expected, unfortunately, much harsher. Don't get me wrong. I'm not asking violence against violence, but better policing, stricter policing, and not basically waiting, oh, well, this is a group, let's see, are they not these freedom fighters from Turkey? So maybe we just stand back. This is something the authorities urgently have to address in Paris, both nationally and, of course, from the city council side.
So, Murat, what did these latest demonstrations tell us about the plight of the Kurds and the presence of the PKK in France? I mean, are they in a real danger, as they claim so?
Well, equating Kurds to PKK is the mistake that one can do. You know, this is clearly is not a fact. It's something different. PKK is a Marxist organization, terrorist organization, and clearly it's challenging the security needs of the Kurdish people. For instance, the Kurds in Syria are repelled, actually deported from Syria by the hands of PKK, PYD or YPG, whatever you call it. So I don't think that the Kurds in Europe are not the same as PKK, and they are a mixture of people just sharing the same benefits, maybe because of the business, because of the rights to claim residency in Europe, or sometimes just to feel them much more stronger. But this is a clear signal in Paris. Well, you can't isolate the problems in the vicinity of Europe, but you can witness exactly the same incidents in the streets of Berlin, London, or Paris. So that's the clear and crystal clear picture right now.
So, Klaus, one of the victims of Friday's attack is known to have fought the Daesh terror organization in northern Syria. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a very interesting link. Actually, it underlines what many people are arguing for a long time, that there is a clear link between what is going on just across Turkey's southern border and what is going on in Europe, as we saw in Paris. Now, if you take a look at the YPG in particular and how it was all set up, I always quote the General Raymond Thomas, who years ago openly confessed, I told them you have to change your brand. They're talking about the YPG, making sure then later on it became the Syrian Democratic Forces, and he put the word democracy in it. There is a clear link between what the YPG has actually in store, the basic mother organization PKK, and as we see now, an attack by someone with a racist motive in Paris leads to the fact that now the argument comes, Kurds are no longer safe in Paris because it is a neighborhood where many citizens are happily living with Kurdish backgrounds. And now they use, of course, their terror strategy, same like anti-Türkiye, anti the French authorities, and saying, look, we have a justified fight here and there. This is what worries me as well. This is a huge potential, unfortunately, a terror tip of the iceberg, and authorities really have to take a look into money laundering, human trafficking, what have you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask this actually. Murat, what do you make of the so-called protesters' accusations against Türkiye over the incidents? I mean, why do you think those protests turns against Türkiye? What's the relation here?
I think they are just trying to claim an excuse to make them more innocent in the eyes of French politicians or French people. And it's nonsense to have Turkey be an epicenter of such discussions or events, actually. But in my opinion, their first idea in here is first, to persuade the French public that they are, as power center that can resonate the streets of Paris, and they can then demand everything from the French or the other European countries. I think this is the essence of what they do right now.
So, Klaus, will these latest incidents stir up concerns about hate crimes at a time when far-right have gained prominence in France and around Europe?
Of course, we have to take a look, first of all, who is the perpetrator, a known perpetrator who already was known by police and the authorities for inciting hatred in society. Then we have the wider so-called populism movement. I'm not saying populism per se is always bad, but if it's for the people, it is good. But populism, as we see it now, is flirting with extreme political movements, both on the right and on the left, in order to tell the establishment something is wrong, but they do not want to better democracy. Ultimately, they want to abandon democracy. Now, here comes the PKK, YPG and its branches in Europe into the picture. They are basically up to create mayhem wherever they go. It is a very, very latent, but perhaps unfortunately potent terror coalition. If we have extreme right movements and extreme left movements, as my esteemed colleague said, with the Marxist-Leninist background, and if all of them unite in a terror combo, a terror orchestra, so to speak, this is the real danger. We have Europe for far too long forgot about to look right. Only left terrorism can happen. Now we have learned, unfortunately, terrorism can happen from the right as well. Now we have the Paris incident. I think we should take a look at the wider picture. What could unite those dangerous elements? And how can society help to overcome this obstacle? It's an uphill task, a massive task, but it has to be done.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.